Hi, I'm Greg Euland with Reynolds & Reynolds, and this is Connected. Today's a great day. I'm excited. I get to talk with Roger Mesiemore. Roger is the Vice President of Fixed Operations at Hendrick Automotive Group. Roger's a part of a show coming up with Hendrick Automotive Group. It's a competition, the Randy Dorton Hendrick Engine Builder Showdown. And wanted to get into the details of this because it's a really exciting event. It's been going on for over 20 years. So, Roger, thanks so much for hopping on.
Thanks for having me, Greg. It's great to be here, and we're super excited about the Engine Builder Showdown coming up. It's hard to believe it's going to be our 22nd event, and it's one of the most exciting, most energetic events that we do every year, and a lot goes behind the scenes. So, just a little bit about my background. I actually started with Hendrick Automotive Group as a technician in 1993. So I just celebrated my 30th anniversary, anniversary, and I don't know where the time goes, but it's been a great ride, and certainly far from over. I'm going to keep going. But I, as a technician, obviously got a great foundation and respect for what technicians do each and every day, and it allowed me an opportunity to grow with the company. So I was always also able to write service and be a department head and manager in fixed operations. And I've been at the corporate office supporting all of our fixed operations, part service, and collision since 2006. So I am honored to be a part of this event. I don't know of any other group that has this level of recognition for their technicians, and the cause is very honorable, and I think it stems from Mr. Hendrick actually having turn wrenches himself, and he brought forth a vision to Randy Dorton and said, hey, the guys at Motorsports have been doing this in NASCAR, and why don't we kick it off and do it for our technicians at the Hendrick Automotive Group. And gosh, the very first one was in 2002, small little event in the museum over there. And it's just built from there. And it seems like every year, the production level gets better and better, but we remind ourselves that, no matter how fancy we get, it's all about recognizing our teammates. And this is really an elite group. So they have to be Hendrick Master technicians before they can take this special qualifying ASE test. ASE is Automotive Service Excellence. It's one of the most recognized credentials in the industry, but they have been kind enough to work with us and build a special test. So before you get to that test, you have to be a Hendrick Master. Well, what does it take to become a Hendrick Master? Well, you do need to have all of your 8 core ASE certifications, which means you would be a Master ASE technician, and also you need to be at the top level of your training with the manufacturer that you represent. So if you're at a Honda store, obviously that would be Honda, General Motors, and so on and so on. So those two are quite a feat to accomplish, and we do require you be with us for a minimum of 1 year, as well as taking our MBS, that's Management by Strengths class, and also our Hendrick culture training through Hendrick University. And then in addition to that, the individual's customer satisfaction has to be up to benchmark or better. So quite a bit goes into becoming a Hendrick Master. So you're an elite in an elite group there. And we basically have 2,500 technicians, and 300 of those are Hendrick Masters. And so out of the 300, we had 110 test takers this year, and then the top scorers or how you earn your way into coming to Charlotte at the Hendrick Motorsports complex and you be a builder, an engine builder. So it's a kind of a difficult road, if you will, to get there. Very high standards and a very elite group. So it's always exciting to recognize those folks because they're the best of the best.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's fantastic. So there's a lot I want to unpack there, Roger. Appreciate you giving that overview. So I guess first, congrats on 30 years. I didn't realize this year was 30 years for you. That's fantastic. Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you.
But I am curious. So you started kind of talking through that story that you started as a technician. How'd you get into it? How'd you get into turning wrenches and what was sort of your path into retail automotive?
Well, believe it or not. I started at a gas station at 15 years old. I had to get a special working permit to work that young, but I just had a passion for cars. And so naturally, all my friends would bring their vehicles to me to work on. And so it just kind of grew from there. And I knew that, in order to get the training and credentials that I wanted to achieve, I needed to be in an environment like a dealership. So I studied automotive technologies at college, and then I went to work at some dealerships and gained more and more experience. Because when you work at a dealership, they send you to the factory training, which you can't access any other way. So it's really special. Yeah,
no, that's great. That's great. I'm definitely envious of some of the guys that get to do this stuff, and I'm I'm amazed at how quick they can do it too. We can get into some of the stats, I'm sure, but looking at it, I mean, they'll build an engine in 25 minutes. It's crazy. I love. Always have kind of loved working on cars too. And there was a night, I'll tell a quick story. There was a night I actually had a auto parts delivery business, and got to the point where one of my delivery vehicles needed a head gasket. And so I said, well, I can do that, right? I can do that. This is like a Tuesday. I can do that and be ready to go tomorrow. And so I had a customer and a friend who was, had a shop, and he let me use his shop. And so I went in there about 8 o'clock and tore the whole top part of the engine off and, replaced the head gasket, put it all back together, got done, about 4 o'clock, and then got up and started running in the morning, delivering parts in the morning. But man, it'd be nice to be able to do that a little quicker. And so the speed with which these guys are able to put something together is just mind-boggling to me, and the accuracy too, right? I mean, you have some penalties obviously here and there, but it's so minimal when these guys put together these engines. It's crazy.
Well, first, I'm super impressed by your story. That's pretty amazing. Your head gasket job. I think you did that in the vehicle, right?
Yeah.
So certainly this is an amazing feat to be able to build an engine on a stand, but you do have better access. And, the all-time record is 21 minutes and 40 seconds, which was set in 2014, which is mind-boggling, as you said, for sure. But we tell the guys that they really got to get their mind wrapped around that they're not putting an engine together that's going to have to run the endurance that they're used to, and so we try to get them to make sure number one priority is have fun, and then think of it as a puzzle, and sometimes you have to slam things together for speed, which you would not normally do, right? As you described. So that's a big deal for them, because as they put these engines together, especially on the motorsport side, they're making sure that these tolerances are just absolute perfection. The friction drag, everything has to be absolutely perfect. And so if I recall right, there's at least 40 man hours in putting this exact engine together for a race. So, step back and think about that. You really have to get your mindset of, I'm not putting this thing together to endure races. I'm putting this thing together to run 60 seconds. So it's quite different. So that's a big part of it, and the speed comes together with communication. So the auto group guy is paired up to the builder at Motorsports, and
Right.
they immediately start to build a relationship and cultivate the chemistry, and they start talking strategy, because they know that when they get teamed up on this engine, if there's any redundancy or somebody stepping over the other person or something's not done in sync, they're going to lose time, critical time.
Right.
So that's critical. But anyway, it's an amazing thing to see for sure.
Yeah. Well, and it probably helps too. Your motorsports guys do this year in and year out, right? So they've done this competition before. They're seasoned. There's a dozen of them or so, right, that do this pretty much every year, and so they have some experience where they can provide that direction, I'm sure, to the to the automotive guys, the automotive group guys. It's like, hey, this is how it's going to work, right? This is what we've done in the past. This is what didn't work. This is the best way to go forward. So I assume there's a lot of coaching that goes on too from the motorsports guys.
Without question. I mean, back to the communication, they are communicating instruction throughout the entire build. And of course, they go into it with a plan, but sometimes the plans don't stick. You have to be nimble and make adjustments and call an audible if you need to keep things going. But that communication of instruction from the motorsports individual is vital for sure. What's next? Did you torque that? Is that properly torqued? Are we ready to turn the crank? They have to talk to each other. It's one of the best demonstrations of teamwork that you could ever see.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's great. So you also mentioned earlier kind of the application process. You said you guys have 2,500 techs, 300 master techs, Hendrick Masters, and you had 110 people that took the test. So what does that look like? I guess how do you apply? And then how do you select those winners? Because you're taking, is it a dozen? Is it 12? Is that accurate?
Yeah, it's 12, and we have 3 alternates. Okay. So the group size would be 15 that come to Charlotte. So you never want it to happen, but there could be someone that's injured or need to fill in. So we do have alternates, but yeah, it really does narrow down the pack. Right. For sure. But the application process is very, very simple. Our recognition team sends out a communication, and our folks simply just go to their manager. Sometimes the manager goes to them. And they get connected with the link to sign up, and then we have these test sites throughout the company in different regions to make it convenient for these folks to go and take this test, and it's really a culmination of all 8 core ASE tests. So you need to know your stuff from drivability to suspension to engine. And so on and so on, and it's really a pretty difficult test, high standard for sure. But the guys do great with it, and we have quite a few new first-time builders this time that aced the test. So we're excited to have them.
That's great. Do you typically see repeat builders? Like, is a tech allowed to do it year after year after year as long as they test high, or is there a waiting period right after you get the opportunity? Then you got to have 2 years off or something.
Bingo. So we actually introduced a red shirt program that gives them a couple years off before they come back, because obviously we want the recognition to be as widespread as possible, and that was really the only way to do it. But yeah, the guys are really passionate about it. I mean, it's not something that they come and enjoy and say, okay, I've been there, done that. They want to come back.
Right. Yeah, it's a badge of honor, I'm sure. Well, and
Yeah.
it's a true competition as well, right? And for a lot of folks, as we move into our professional lives, right, and our careers, we don't get to scratch that itch as much as maybe we used to when we were younger. So getting to truly compete, head to head against somebody else, in something that you've spent a lot of time and energy, developing the skills to be excellent at, and getting to show that off and compete against somebody else. That's a lot of fun, I imagine, right? It goes beyond just the pride. It goes beyond just the selection and the recognition. It goes to actually getting to go head to head and showing that you're better or faster.
It really does. But one of the most special things about it is it kicks off relationships that last for a long, long time, and it's such a unique opportunity for our folks on the auto side to get to spend time on the Hendrick Motorsports campus. And the folks at Hendrick Motorsports are some of the best hosts that you could ever ask for. They love showing off their workspace. They really like to stay in touch with the auto group guys, and the relationships are ongoing. And it's just really special to see that. And it's there's really no better way for our folks to have that experience with the motorsports folks, and also their working environment, their campus. What do they do all season? And they love to showcase that. And it's such a special place because, I every time I go out there, I'm amazed by the equipment, the talent, and pretty much if you can dream it, they can fabricate it. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Yeah. So, one of the things I'm curious about, because if I'm a tech, and obviously I want to do this, right? This is something that's really cool. I've spent a lot of time perfecting my craft, and I get selected to go out to Charlotte. But there's a couple things that are kind of in the back of my mind. So I'm wondering, how you guys handle this, or maybe it's a non-issue. I don't know. But if I'm a tech, I think, okay, I got to prep for this, right? I need to practice a little bit. I can't just show up and be taught how to do all this, how to build a NASCAR engine, right? So I need to prep. So that's time. Right. And also, I'm going to have some time away. Right. I'm going to be out of the shop. I'm going to be, I don't know how long they're there, but I assume it's at least probably 5 days. Right. So I got a week away from the shop. So in that vein of those two things, obviously, if I'm a technician, my hours are very important to me. Right. That's how I make my money. So that may be a bit of a concern, or at least something in the back of my mind is, I'm going to have a week, or, when you tack on practice, maybe 2 weeks where I'm not necessarily turning wrenches, or certainly not getting as many hours as I would. I don't know. Does that come up, or is that an issue that you guys have to consider?
So for the actual event, Mr. Hendrick has us pay the technician, so there's no concern there. As far as prep, we've really never had any concern there. And there are different levels that the guys prep for, and or the approach. And one of the big things is, for this competition, we don't allow any pneumatic tools or any battery operated tools. It's all speed handles and hand wrenches. Yep. And ratchets and sockets and whatnot, hand tools. And so, the folks on our side, every day, all day, they're using automated tools, battery operated, pneumatic, whatever the case may be. So that's a huge adjustment for them. So you'll see some of the folks will buy a speed handle, and they'll start using that and just practicing with that, because it really is an art. To get speed with that. But in addition, if you think about it, in today's automotive world, it's rare for us to build an engine from the ground up. Right. So usually it's a unit replacement kind of thing. A short block, you might replace a short block, which would not come with the cylinder heads intake. You transfer all that over. And sometimes it's a long block, which you might not transfer much over besides an alternator and a water pump or something like that. But in most cases, our folks on the automotive group side are not pulling pistons through cylinder holes and torquing rod bolts and cranks and everything else. So going back to get your mind wrapped around it being a puzzle. That's kind of what they have to do, because they do not have a lot of experience. Now, of course, the motorsports guys, they have tons of experience, and that's why they are the ones that are communicating the instructions.
Right.
Because they know what needs to be done in what order, and make sure that the engine is timed properly so it will run, and all of those details.
Yeah. So you mentioned a puzzle a couple times. It's about 250 pieces, right? I mean, when it's all said and done, you got about 250 pieces laid out.
That is correct. I mean, the fasteners are quite plentiful, and the lubrication. As you get into the build, you're mentally exhausted, you're physically exhausted, and your fine motor movements start to play tricks with you. And then you add on top of that the Valvoline lubricants make it even more challenging to hold those little fasteners. And so sometimes we do have a cross-threaded situation, which it would be a penalty. But most of the time it's just they have to kind of take a breath, slow down, and not drop anything, because if you drop something, you've lost critical time.
Yeah. So talk about those penalties a little bit, because you're a part of this event, right? I mean, you're in the garage, kind of, you're in there, you're commentating, you're talking about what's going on, you're explaining things, because you've been in the seat, right? So talk a little bit about the scoring, right? You have clearly the sheer time, right? When does the engine fire up, and how long does it take to build the thing? But then you have a series of penalties. So there's a review, and what are those categories, or maybe there's a finite, list of penalties that you're looking for?
Yeah. So, part of our objective in the Valvoline engine shop is to help the audience understand what each component is. So floor commentator might say, hey, they're putting in the crankshaft. What's crankshaft look like? So we try to point that out, whether it's an exhaust piece or the intake or any of that stuff. But yeah, as far as putting that stuff in a certain order, right. I think it goes back to the motorsports guy giving that instruction for sure. And then there was part two to that question. Remind me what that.
No, I was just curious what the penalties are, right? So
yeah,
you mentioned cross-threading. What are the other types of categories, or if there's a finite list or something?
So there's both. So the normal fasteners need to be hand tight, and they do check those on teardown. But what they call the critical fasteners, whether it be crankshaft bolts or rod bolts, need to be properly torqued. So we have several different torque wrenches that are preset, and then as they tear the engine down, any fastener that should be to a specific torque, that is inspected, because we don't want the engine to become damaged in any way, because it would not be fair to the next team, for sure. So there are different categories of penalties, and if you left a plug wire loose or something and the engine still ran, you would have a penalty associated with that particular item. And so we do have a checklist, if you will, to reference to, as you pointed out earlier.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. What range do you give? What range do you give on torque? Any?
On torque?
Yeah.
So it's a minimum, if you will. Yeah. Minimum torque.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
All right. That makes sense. So give me a little background, Roger, on this event, right? Where did it kind of come from? What was the genesis? Usually there's a story behind the story, right? You kind of mentioned wanting to get the teamwork going, and Mr. Hendrick was excited about it, but is there more to it at all? Was there more to the story kind of getting this thing rolling?
Well, Mr. Hendrick has led us with a culture of making sure we appreciate our teammates. Mm-hmm. And we have a lot of events for a lot of different positions in a dealership and in our company, and his vision is to make sure we don't leave anyone out, and we really respect and appreciate our technicians, and we want them to know that. And so, it was his vision that he brought forth to say, hey, I want to have the biggest and the baddest recognition event for technicians in the industry. And that's when we went to work, and we just continued to build it year after year in a better way. We ended up naming it in honor of Randy Dorton after the tragedy, and you can tell the pride that the motorsports folks take in that makes it extra special. So the recognition is for our technicians and also for the motorsports engine builders, and it's just so unique and so special. It's a privilege to be a part of it.
No, that's great. That's great. So, Roger, talk a little bit about when the events happen, and it's early November, but talk about kind of when it's happening and how folks can tune in if they're interested. Again, I think it's an exciting event. I think it's a pretty cool thing that you guys put on. You have. It's like watching something on NBC Sports, So, talk a little bit about the details.
Yeah, so we kick off on Wednesday, November the 8th, and it starts at 9 a.m. It's Wednesday and Thursday, 2-day competition, and we're going to live stream it on racingamerica.tv and also hendrickebs.com.
Okay. We can put links to those in the show notes when we post it too. So it's a fun event, and it's a fun event, and one that's worth checking out. It's pretty interesting, pretty exciting. So one other thing maybe more than one, but at least one other thing I wanted to touch base with you on. You've done a lot of. You were going through your history and your experience. Starting as a tech and kind of having a bunch of different jobs throughout your career and a bunch of different roles and having the opportunity to grow. Maybe this is an unfair question, but what's been your favorite job?
My favorite job? Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, favorite job would be as a technician, because your day is never the same, and you can step back and look or reflect on the solutions that you were able to come up with. And you don't win all the time, but it's really satisfying to address a customer's issue and to verify that they're satisfied and happy with that. And the other thing about being a technician is, there's a lot of freedom between working inside and also outside. You can work outside a little bit if you want to, if the day's beautiful. On the test drive, you can take a different route than you normally take or whatever. But no day is the same. There's always going to be a different challenge that comes to you for sure. But it's a wonderful career to be an automotive technician.
It is. It definitely is. So one other thing I was just noticing, and you mentioned it earlier, where techs to be a part of this event have to take the management by strength or MBS test, and you have a pretty high D there on your red name badge. So can you talk maybe a little bit about that and why that's important for the Hendrick organization? It's clearly embedded in your culture, and you get to know a lot about your peers really just by their name tag. So I don't know, maybe would you mind talking a little bit about that too?
Absolutely. Mr. Hendrick points out all the time, continually, how important communication is. And the better we understand how to approach each other, the better we can communicate between each other. And so, as you pointed out, my badge says that my D is above the line, my color is red. So that just means that's a dominant trait, and that's D stands for direct. And so you'll see green for extrovert, which would be above the line. The E would be above the line, and then blue would be paste. Mr. Hendrick is paste, and then yellow would be structured. Show it to me, prove it to me in writing, kind of thing. But there's an advantage for us to see our teammates with the grid and with the color, but you can also apply it to the customers that you interact with. You can tell pretty quick that someone wants to hear all the details and have conversation around the mission, or more conversation that has nothing to do with the mission or the transaction. And that person would most likely be an extrovert. You need to read that, especially if you're direct like I am. You want to make sure that you're not jumping to the topic too quickly, or asking for the sale too quickly, if you're dealing with an extrovert. But it really boils down to enhancing, improving our communication between each other as teammates and also the customers that we serve. And so we look at it as an advantage. We have an advantage because of that training. And we set out to provide the best experience possible for each individual. So we want to make sure that we individualize the approach.
Yep, no, that's great, and I love the program and that you guys do it. I think it's extremely valuable. So I'm glad that you shared that. I appreciate it. Well, Roger, this has been a fun conversation. We did kind of bounce all over a little bit, but anything else you want to touch on before we hop out of here? Anything we didn't talk about that we should?
Well, I think we covered it. It's just we're excited that we can have a larger audience that can view. So we really hope that folks will dial in and see. We will do our best to describe what's happening and get a front row view of everything that's happening. And you'll get to see a lot of the interviews with past winners and also some of the current builders and whatnot. And we have some special guests coming by. So we believe it'll be worthwhile if we can get the viewers to log in and watch. And we appreciate everybody's support. We appreciate Reynolds and Reynolds support of the event. We have truly great partners, and you guys are always right there with us, making sure that we can put this event on, and we truly appreciate it.
Well, you're more than welcome. We're glad we can be a part of it. It is a great event. So, Roger Mesiemore, Vice President, Fixed Operations for Hendrick Automotive Group. Thank you very much for the conversation. It was a lot of fun.
Hey, my honor. Thanks for having me. Thanks, Greg.
Yep, we'll see you.
Okay.
Well, that was a fun conversation with Roger Mesiemore from Hendrick Automotive Group. He's their vice president of fixed ops there, and putting on this event. They do it every year. He mentioned in the conversation that this is the 22nd year doing their Engine Builder Showdown. I think it's a fantastic event. I'm glad they do it, and hopefully you can check it out. It's about a week from today, so check out the links in the show notes, and hopefully we'll see you on there. Don't forget, before we hop off, you can watch or listen to all episodes of Connected on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify podcasts, and make sure to hit subscribe so you're notified every other week when new episodes are released. Thanks so much, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.